selected recording, and looks like it says recording has started. So we are recording and live now.
Thanks, Keith.
Just so we're aware, I think we just lost Alderman Johnson. He is no longer in the attendance right now. So I don't know what happened. We disconnected from him.
He will probably jump back in a second. Let's go ahead and get started. Well, before we get into the meat of it, we'll wait for him. He's back.
He's back on now. Yep.
I'm sorry about that. I was trying to record it and ended up knocking myself out.
There we go. All right. Well, I would like to call the September 4th work session to order. First item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. So I'll stand. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, on to our items for discussion. We do have representatives from St. Charles Community College to present some ideas they have for the Farm to Table Institute on the Darden Prairie campus. Join us.
Opportunity to,
You maximize the slideshow. Can those online hear what's being said from the podium?
No,
we cannot.
Oh,
Oh,
perfect.
Is that better?
Can you hear me now?
Now I
Yep.
can.
Gotcha now.
Okay, great. Sorry about that. I'm not going to repeat what I just said. Anyway, we appreciate the opportunity to present to you an idea that we would like to have consideration from the city. As you can see on the overhead, this involves really three parties. It involves Great Rivers Greenway, the city of Darden Prairie, and of course, St. Charles Community College. If you go to the next slide, please. Right now, as it stands, Great Rivers Greenway owns the land behind where the college is located at Garden Creek campus. It is immediately behind our Field to Table. Many of you know about our Field to Table Institute building, the old Barrett Haven gymnasium that we converted into our culinary school and also our Field to Table Institute. As you can see on the map, the land is right behind it. I'm not quite sure the number of acres it is, but it's at least, I'd say at least 10 acres, maybe a little more, that's immediately adjacent behind us. That field was used originally back in the day by the school. It was also rented out for various sports teams to use for practices. And then at some point it was converted into a cricket field or cricket pitch. And it's been that since then. The city of Darden Prairie leases that land, my understanding. They have a long-term lease. And this is the space that we're interested in talking about today. So you can go to the next slide, please. So the next slide, as I said before, is currently maintained by the city of Darden Prairie. You guys have a porta potty out there. My understanding, the water, electricity, all that stuff is still being accessed by the St. Charles Community College. The field is currently used mainly on weekends. I do believe there's some practice occasionally during the week, but most of the activity seems to be occurring on the weekends. And to access that space, the public has to enter through the college's property, come down One Academy Drive and drive all the way down to the parking lot, which is our parking lot, and then access the field from the back. If you go to the next slide, please. Here's a larger kind of view of the campus. So the part that's circled that's St. Charles Community College's property. And as I mentioned, you have to drive through our property to get to the parking spaces down down by the fields. And, you know, for us, we have a concern about this because a lot of times that field is, sometimes we lock up, we have gates to lock up that space because we don't want to have people on our property sometimes in the weekends and stuff. It's actually supposed to be technically closed every weekend. But we have, you know, we have things down there at the field table. We have a greenhouse. We have a freight farm. We have other items on there that we want to make sure that we're protecting from vandalism and other things. Not saying that our folks that play cricket do that, but it's just we're trying to protect that property in the after hours, in the weekends. We are now planning to build another building, which is really even more important because that space, that parking space down there has become more valuable to us because we're going to have another building that's going to be built pretty much adjacent to or on the other side of the field to table building. And that's going to really put more pressure on that parking lot. In addition to, we'll probably have more activity going on the weekends as well. Next slide, please. So what we're asking is kind of a proposed use of the land is that we'd like to, because we have a growing agricultural program at the college, we would like to take over kind of use of that land that's behind the field to table right now. That's currently where the cricket pitch is located. Our plans are to start up a viticulture program, which involves which would involve vineyards having grapes being grown on that location, and also additional space for crops. And like I said, our agricultural program is definitely growing, and we're wanting to expand it even more. So that land we've been told is good land for that type of agricultural activity, and with it being so close to our facility, we think it would be a great spot for us to be able to utilize that space. Next slide, please. So our proposed solution is obviously the city to consider relocating the cricket or sports field to another location that's more suitable for better access, better parking, and overall facilities for those who are using the cricket field right now. We have had conversations with the folks in the Cricket Academy, American Cricket Academy, and they are very supportive of the idea of providing another location that would give them better access and better parking and use of facilities. Our proposed solution is that the college would take over the long-term lease with Great Rivers Greenway from the city of Dardenne Prairie to expand our agriculture program and start a viticulture program. And then, of course, the college would continue to maintain access to the Great Rivers Greenway pathway trail, which is located currently right now pretty much right behind our field table building. We would maintain that access for the public to be able to walk through there. Next slide, please. So overall, we believe this is a potential win-win situation for all parties. The city of Dardenne Prairie could hopefully find another location to provide a cricket field that's better access, parking, et cetera, for the patrons that use that facility. And then, of course, allow the college to expand our agricultural and viticultural programs to meet community needs. Also to provide a better trail experience for the citizens with an opportunity to view grape vineyards and other crops growing near the trail. I know a lot of people right now walk on the trail. They see what's going on. We have a fence actually right now that kind of prevents wildlife and anybody else to access our other areas that we have, different crops growing right now on our other field. But with that field there, it would be more open access that people are walking through there to be able to get up close and personal with those crops that are growing. And of course, we believe this would be no cost to Great Rivers Greenway. And of course, the college, we're willing to take over the responsibility of maintaining that space. I know the city right now does that on behalf of Great Rivers Greenway. And I think that's the last slide. There you go. And I'm open to any questions.
Hi, John. This is
Go ahead.
This is Keith Whitteman. I'm the alderman over here in Ward 3, and this is my backyard. So
Yes.
I've got a couple of questions for you. The first question I had is really related to the football field. What is that? Is that football field is that being used for anything right now? That's a sizable piece of property that you guys have in it. I think that's community college property as well. Is that correct?
That is our property. To answer your question, whether it's being used or not, as you know, it's not being used. That field is, most of, if not all of the topsoil was stripped off of that location a long, long time ago when they originally were going to put in a field. They put in a concrete barrier around it for the track, which they never put in a track. They did install a scoreboard, which recently was taken down.
Thank you for
But
that.
that space is not really conducive for growing crops. We'd have to do a lot of land, soil upgrades to get it to where we could grow any type of crops on that location. Quite frankly, that space, we don't know yet. We haven't made any plans, long-term plans yet for that space, but it's ideal for if we wanted to put another building. That's a good level spot to put it. So I think right
Mhm.
now we're still leaving that open for future expansion.
And the next question is, what about the property immediately to the north, where you can see in here, it's to the left of that circle that's mowed and well-maintained and manicured. That's also community college property.
That is,
And I understand, bottom ground is traditionally a little bit more appealing for agricultural purposes, but grapes and vineyards tend to grow on hills. So that's kind of where I'm a little bit perplexed with this.
you are correct. I mean, typically vineyards, from what we understand, we've had an expert come out and review all of our land that we have available. And they said, you can pretty much grow grapes really anywhere, although they do somewhat do better in rockier, less, they thrive when they have the roots go deeper. That's
Mhm.
told. But that land that you asked about to the left, that land is, part of that's in kind of like a um, water retention type location. And then part of it is available for expansion. I think originally when Barrett Haven drew up their master plan, they had plans to expand to that side of that building, to expand to the north. Not completely that entire location, because like I said, part of that's for water retention. But there could be room for us to expand on that side of the building.
Another question is just to see if you're aware, and the other aldermen as well. The field is on the very left side, probably the left third, or maybe a little bit more of the field is used for the cricket field, but the other half is used frequently by kids in the neighborhood. And I've gone out there and played catch with my dog. I've gone out there and kicked the soccer ball around with my kids. So it does get utilized. Access for everybody else that is not a part of Barrett Haven and makes it a little bit. But so the question is the intention to take over the totality of the green space in this field?
Yeah, that is our intent, to take over the use of that entire field.
Okay. Thank you.
When we spoke, and for everyone's edification, I did go out and speak with Mr. Weeman at the Darden Prairie site. We did take a quick walk around before moving on to some other subjects.
Mr.
Oh,
Weeman, not Mr. Whitteman, just to be clear.
right, different people, very similar. One thing we did talk about was the non-certificate courses, the community courses that the college offers, especially around the Farm to Table Institute. Can you speak about those real briefly?
Actually, I'd like to have my colleague Shelley maybe talk about that.
Absolutely. So we do offer a very wide variety of classes for the public non-certificate programs, either one evening or multiple evening sessions. And what we see with the expansion into this area is the ability to broaden that even further and offer more for the community, whether that be, focused on agriculture, focused on foraging. We are going to be working with some of the other local communities that want to expand their programs. And we just see this as an opportunity to really provide more for the community, not just in terms of education for students, but education for adults in a variety of ways that the community is really asking for.
I might also mention too, to kind of go back to the point that Alderman Wiedemann made a comment about was, the grapes, we're not looking at just growing them just in that location. We have multiple areas where we're looking at growing them. That space is actually really ideal for row crops that we would like to do. We don't really have enough space right now. We have about 2.2 acres. That spot that's just to the right of that circle. That's our existing space that we have right now that we grow a lot of our crops and stuff. And we need more space for our agricultural program to do more extensive row crop type productions. And that way the students can get a better hands-on experience with that. So that land would not be just all vineyards. It would be probably a combination of that. Maybe a third or a fourth of it might be grapes, and the rest would be row crop and other types of crops.
Speaking of what you guys have over there right now, do you do any community courses for chicken raising? I expect you would have an increased demand.
We do. So that is something that the community is asking for. We have not officially put anything on the calendar for that yet, but we will.
Perfect.
And there's, along the lines of chicken, there's also bees. People are becoming increasingly interested in bees. So that's another area that we will plan to be opening up and educating the community going forward.
I have a question. I'm not interested in chickens in my neighborhood, but I would like to know, how would our residents utilize this? Meaning, is there a special pricing? Do Darden Prairie residents get a special thing or with this? I just want to know, what is Darden Prairie really getting out of this? It doesn't seem like I think you're taking over the lease. What else are we getting from the whole complex, whole plan?
Well, I don't know what you guys spend right now to maintain that property, what you have to pay. I mean, I think your long-term lease is probably what, $1. But I don't know what your costs are for your operational costs. That I can't speak to. But I can tell you that we'll obviously take over that responsibility if we're able to have that land used for educational purposes. But I mean, it's the benefit to the city of Darden Prairie is just that our campus is going to be more robust with us building another building, having more and more people down there. That's going to bring more people into Darden Prairie, students that are going to be there at that campus pretty much almost full time. We have a very successful nursing program right there. We're wanting to expand that as well. That's part of the reason why we're building that second building, so we can allow more space in the current building so we can expand our nursing program and our allied healthcare program. So it's really allowing us, quite frankly, to be able to grow and expand the college campus and make it even more robust and be a benefit to the city and the rest of the county.
I have a question, but it's maybe not a them question, is more maybe a Mike question. The cricket pitch, I think didn't we just give somebody an award a few months ago about that? And it seemed like there was really good buy-in, and they're talking about a possible relocation of that. Do we even know if there's a potential site to relocate them to?
So
I mean, it's like, oh, you did a really great job. You get a cricket thing. Oh, wait a second, we want your land,
I can remember where this was said. I know that there was an idea being floated around of moving that across the road to Bluebird Meadow. And some sketches have been drawn up already. I think we have some other opportunities. We have a bean field right down the road that has not been generating anything for the city and might be a good place with better access for those cricket players.
Okay.
I do want to remind, and actually maybe the first time telling some folks here, over the years, we've had a bit of contention with the site. There've been complaints about, young cricket players don't always pick up after themselves. We've had some complaints about, public urination because, whether it was hot and they just didn't want to go in the porta potty because the porta potty was kind of nasty or whatever the reason. And then, of course, the parking issues and competing with the community college for parking and their easements getting onto their property to be able to access the fields. This has not been a walk in the park, unintended. This has been a lot of controversy. So I think that for my part of it, seeing that move somewhere else would probably be good for the cricket players as well. I think they would really enjoy it. And have you spoken to the Cricket
Yeah,
Association?
before we even got that far down the path of this, we wanted to make sure that they were agreeable to the idea of relocating to a different location. And they were very supportive of the whole idea of moving to a different spot. That field, I don't know if you've been out there in a while, but it's starting to show its age. It needs to be probably completely redone. That the pitch is, I don't remember what they spent on that. They made the initial investment to put that pitch in, but it's going to need some investment to upgrade it, fix it. It's starting to show its age. But they were very supportive of the idea of finding a new location with better parking, better access, hopefully better facilities, maybe the access to
Yeah.
rooms and whatnot.
So I'd like to add to that because again, Bluebird Meadow is right here in my backyard as well. And right now that's used by lacrosse players. It's used by my son's friend's kindergarten soccer team. It's used by a variety of different sports activities. So converting Bluebird Meadows to a cricket field doesn't really seem to make a lot of sense in my mind, given the level of utility that it already has for so many other members of the community. The bean field, I don't know, that would be a bit of a stretch, and I'm not sure that would be the appropriate use for that either. So I wouldn't say that. So I would say that we do have a bit of an issue with relocating it, and in theory sounds great, but this hasn't really been fully fleshed out. We can't just, take over another actively used park and turn it into a cricket field. I think that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Secondly, if you look to the left of this picture that we're looking at, if I recall, and I defer to any of the other aldermen who've been around during this time when we were floating some of these, or actually anybody who's been paying attention, because GRG has been putting out a lot of designs and different phases of the what's the connector for GRG across the county? What's the name? Anybody remember the name of that?
Greenway?
Well, it's Great River Greenway, but there's a whole project where they're going to connect the trails over to Bush Wildlife Area and connect it over to the Greenway over by on the other side of Bush. And so that being said, if I recall, part of that was to expand the parking lot area right there on the left side, which would give greater access to this field for members of our community during that time. And that would be a Great Rivers Greenway funded effort. So it would sort of reduce some of the landlocked issues that we're seeing here as well. So I don't remember the time frame on that, but I do just something that came to mind as I was looking at this is it certainly does create a challenge for non-Barrett Haven residents, excuse me. But that right now, could be a challenge that could be solved momentarily, in the near future. So just to point that out as well as we assess this option. Thank you.
This is Mark Johnson. Keith, I don't think you were on the board at the time, but Mike, I know you were there when there was drawings over on Bluebird Park that would also expand that area and not take over the field, but add additional field and additional parking over there for that. So I think that's something we ought to revisit. We don't have to go into what was presented before, but I think we got the opportunity to expand those fields over there and put some additional parking, as I think they need additional parking for the fields that are being used now. The other part up there with our bean field, the land we own up there, as Mike has brought up and I've brought up many times before, we don't even get anything from the sharecropping that goes on that property. Thus, putting a park there that can be used for a cricket field would basically almost energize and start our concept of what people are looking for going down towards Town Square. I mean, that may even kick something off. and interest other people to do something there. So those are just my thoughts. The other thing is anytime we can expand our community college and encourage them to grow for our city, I think it's a big plus in our city to do that. So that was just my 2 cents.
Yeah, one thing I'll mention about cricket fields, there's not much to them. It's a long strip and then a whole bunch of grass. So I don't think it would preclude other uses, but definitely correct to say that this hasn't been fleshed out. So this is something that we need to, intended as a kickoff conversation. I encourage all of the aldermen to reach out to John and Shelley and have that conversation, make your voices heard, get any feedback from them that you need. Also, Alderman Wilson bringing up a good point, pushing for some Garden Prairie discounts on those community courses. I think that's a great idea. But does anyone have any parting questions for our guests? All right. Well, thank you guys for coming out and
Thank
chatting
you
with us
for
about
your
this.
time. Appreciate the consideration.
Tom, can you pull their images over so we can see the floating heads?
What?
Their images, pull the screen for Teams over onto the big screen. Thank you, sir.
Sure.
All right, next item on the agenda is Missouri Department of Transportation memorandum for the Henning Road project. Tom, are you prepared to talk about this, or who would like to kick this one off?
I think that was gonna be the mayor.
All right, well, I will do my best. I don't know much about this. I was hoping to get some answers tonight. It does appear that there was pushback from MoDOT on some of the fundings, primarily surrounding voice of Mr. Weiss is our designer, and they have some remediation, remediatory steps they're suggesting. Now, this was sent back in July. Do we know if the response was ever sent back to?
Not aware of them. Do the call of MoDOT.
He said that the city is not aware of a response being given back to MoDOT on this, but there is a call scheduled for tomorrow.
Yeah, so what I can share, Mike, is the previous administrator had not communicated maybe properly to MoDOT, the selection process of, and our firm's on the on-call list, and that's the way, and Mr. Young is in the middle of fleshing that out, and making sure we currently have the similar situation with Town Square Boulevard. So, there's no conflict. I am not a full-time employee, as you know, and so this is typical. We're already doing the same type of contract through MoDOT for Town Square Boulevard and the federal process. So that was flushed out last year and a half ago. So there was some new management change at MoDOT. And so I don't think they quite understood how the LPA / some of the city contract engineering relationships work. And there's other firms beside mine that do the same thing. So it's not anything new. We've been doing it this way for many, many years. So I believe Mr. Young is in process of working through that with MoDOT. That's really the only issues, making sure that the selection process was followed, and it was, but it's just, he has to provide some of the backup data that MoDOT is requesting.
I
And
appreciate
the other
it.
part of it was just the DBE percentage,
Okay.
which we took a stab at using the same percentage that we did for Town Square. And so that's part of the hiccup. They want to make sure that that is flushed out properly. Those are
Can I ask what that, you say VBD?
DBE stands for Disadvantaged Business Enterprise. So it's a certain percentage of projects, whether it's design portion or construction portion, that goes to try to utilize DBE contractors / engineers. So for instance, we are meeting those requirements because we are using a DBE certified surveyor to fulfill the percentage requirement that's typically required by MoDOT. And the name of the company is Sabre Surveying. We use them all the time, but they are a DBE certified surveying company, Sabre, SABUR. And so Mr. Young is,
Did they give us a timeline for you need to have something into us by such and such date?
I think they just wanted a response from the city to move forward. We're chopping at the bit to start, but we're not going to start anything till we get the blessing through John and through the MoDOT representatives to move this off dead center.
We've had difficulty getting contact with the person. Finally got the call scheduled.
Is that Heather?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I want to make sure everyone has time for their questions, but I would recommend moving on and giving the city staff and the attorney a chance to get more information on this and come back in the next meeting. Anyone have any other questions? Right. All right. Number 3 is disbanding of Town Square Vision Steering Committee, and this was by Alderman Detweiler.
I just think it's time to bring this committee to a close. And so in order to do that, I did this request for board action. What I'd like to do is talk about it tonight. I put a date in this RBA for having any results given to us by the next board meeting, which would be on the 18th, I believe. And then we move forward with whatever it is. This is holding up what we're trying to do to try to develop the city any further. And I just, there hasn't been a meeting since April. The meeting a couple weeks ago, they didn't end up having because there wasn't enough people there for the meeting. But it's my understanding there's some dates being thrown out for a meeting again. I don't know what the responses have been, but I feel like this committee has had long enough to do what they needed to do and to bring it back to the board. And then we give it to P&Z and then everybody come to a consensus of how we're going to move this city forward and develop it.
I was going to just ask a quick question. Do you know if all the bills have been paid related to this?
The only bill would be PG&E. Is that correct? Has that been based?
Okay. So there's no outstanding.
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
So, yeah, at this point, I think it's no more cost to the city for however long it takes. However, one point here to bring up is there was a time limit on the committee, and we have the ability to extend it. I think we're past that time limit. So at the very least, we need to take action to extend it if we want to continue the work or accept disbandment. I like the idea of extending briefly. We do have the chairman of the committee here. If you'd like to come up and join the conversation, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Yes, over time, it has been much harder to get engagement from the broader. Some people on the committee have moved roles and not get hold of them anymore. So scheduling has been a conflict. What are your thoughts on this proposal to extend only to the 18th?
Good evening. My name is Carl Moss, Chairman of the Vision Committee. The problems that I suppose that you might say that we've had is that we did have a meeting scheduled. We did have people show up for the meeting. We thought we were going to have a quorum at the last meeting. And unbeknownst to us, at the last minute, one of the persons that had acknowledged they would be there wasn't able to be there. We asked the city attorney, not John, but another one of them, what we should do. They suggested that if the person could not stay on the meeting for the entire time on the Zoom call, it would not be considered to be a bona fide qualified meeting. So we decided that we would not try to conduct business if it wasn't to be official. So as was said, we have put out another request for a meeting. It was just done in the last 2 days. People are starting to respond to that. So we're hoping to be able to bring this to a conclusion just as much as you would like to have it brought to a conclusion. There have been some things that have happened. The person that was administering this, that being the city administrator, was no longer with us. That complicated matters somewhat. I know there's been some questions whether or not there are meeting minutes. The meeting minutes were being held by that same person. So I believe they're probably somewhere in this city as far as some of the equipment that's still here. But I did also talk to PGAV. They were able to supply me with some information. They've done their work. I mean, they've done what we've asked. We've met more times than we were required or asked to meet. We've had the public open houses. So it's simply a matter of the committee being able to get back together and be able to formulate some kind of conclusion to this. There's varying opinions on this, and see where they go with this. I could interject my own personal opinions as far as where we should go, but I think maybe it might be best until the meeting does come to be, and then at that point, hopefully those will be included in the rest of the different participants' comments. I'm more than glad to answer any questions. I don't think that it was because we haven't met enough. We've met plenty of times. There's been a lot of different opinions, varying opinions. The group was put together and have a lot of different backgrounds, a lot of different opinions as far as where the city should go. And we're just trying to work through all that. I'll entertain any questions.
I want to just say that Chairman Moss was being very kind not to call out the person that wasn't there. I own that. I had an engagement out of town that I had to go to, and unfortunately I can only phone in for the first part of it. But I think that shows you just how hard it has been to coordinate with this group of people to get in the same place and get meetings going when we're, one person away from a quorum. Talking about the date on here, because we have to choose a date to extend to. The proposal in front is the 18th.
I'd like, if possible, I don't want to have this go out any further than it already has. I'd like to see if we didn't disband it on the 18th, but actually give it to the next council. That gives us enough time to be able to get everybody together. If there's conflicts in their schedules, be able to sit down and let it be known that this is the finale of this. This is the conclusion that we're all wanting to get done and to give some, besides what's been supplied already through the vendor, PGAV, the committee's report. That's what we're asking.
And that date would be October 2nd, those in attendance. I would support that. I think that extra 2 weeks would probably, given the short runway and given the disruption of the city administrator's departure, I think that giving it 30 more days. Questions, concerns?
No, I have a
this is-
question. Oh, go ahead, Mark.
This is Alderman Johnson. I'd like to say, I understand that the process of bringing it to a close, but I'll also say that we need to give the residents that committed their time and effort to this. I know there's some that have left the committee, but there are some that worked hard on this and spent a lot of time. And as far as just disbanding it, we, the city, spent $70,000 on this. And not to get a final report out of it, I don't think would be the right thing. I think the least we should do is let the committee meet to get together again and give us their final report that we can forward on to Planning and Zoning Committee. Thank you.
Yes, my question was, is it the fact that we need new members on this board? And please correct me if I'm wrong, or what is it we need? I'm not disagreeing on both sides. I'm right in the middle, but I just want to know what we need to get this process going.
I think simply enough time to be able to pull a meeting together. We did lose one person, but other than that, we have the adequate number of persons to be able to do this. They've gone through the whole process. And like I said, the main thing is just having the time to get everyone's schedules together and to have that final.
Do we need to fill that one slot, Mr. Moss?
I don't think so. No. He actually was not in attendance many of the times. It wasn't because he didn't want it, he just had other responsibilities in the position that he has.
And I apologize. You say no or yes? I'm sorry.
No, I don't think we need to add in. It might convolute things and make it more difficult to come to conclusion. They'd have to be brought totally up to speed and not really have the ability to have gone through the whole process as we have with the moderating being done by PGA.
Also, last question for me. Alderman Costello, are you the alderman on this committee? And if you need support, do you need support from us?
I would agree with the chairman on this one. Right now, I think we have the right people. I think that this extension give the chairman an opportunity to rally the troops for one more time and get it done. But of course, anything needed, I will act as a liaison and pass any requests on and make sure that we get right resources. More questions?
No, but I'd just like to make a comment. It seems to me that it took almost doing an RBA a month and a half ago to get a meeting scheduled that they weren't able to have. Now it's taken me putting another RBA together to get another meeting scheduled. And what are we going to do if this meeting doesn't come to fruition? Are we going to wait and do a couple more months? Or are we just going to sit here and that was my reason for doing this RBA is I want to get this thing to the end. I'm not blaming anybody. I'm just saying we've got to bring this to a close. And it seems like it always takes an action of something like this to get this committee moving. And as chairman, Mr. Moss, I mean, I think you have to take some responsibility in this as a chairman to have stayed on top and tried to get this done. Now, I'm not saying you didn't, but I'm just saying that, you know, you have some responsibility with this.
I
committee.
understand that. I encourage, unfortunately, he's not here,
I get that.
person to set the meetings up. I don't have access to all of the different emails of everyone other than they're going through a different process, a different program. So I was constantly in here. I think, Mike, you can attest to that. And it isn't just because you decided that you wanted to shut this down that we were going to have another meeting. We were going to have another meeting when the one that didn't take place was a problem, and we were trying to get that scheduled.
Okay.
We were told that other persons were busy, and please give it a little bit of time so they could go ahead and try to get the people together. So it's a little bit offensive, to be quite honest with you. We've been through this process. We've spent a great deal of our own personal time to make this happen. We've spent the city's money to have this happen. Everything's been done except for the final meeting.
And that's what we want to have.
Well, and that's what we want also.
So that's why I put a date in here to try to get this thing to an end. So if you need an extension, then, you know, that's up to the board, but
So
I don't want to see it go past whatever extension. I mean, this is going to be too much. It's going on too long.
So for the sake of time, question about process, in order to officially grant an extension until October 2nd, can we do that today in the workshop or something else have to happen?
Yeah, something else would have to happen. What we can do is we can prepare an amended resolution at the next Board of Alderman meeting. And at that meeting, it will have two parts. One part will be the extension to put in October, the first meeting in October, second meeting in October. And then have a default provision in it that says that if a final vote recommendation is received, that it will be automatically referred to.
Okay. Sounds good. And second, I absolutely hear the concerns that were raised about scheduling previously and reliance on others. Agree as a board that the chairman is to have access to whatever he needs to schedule those. And has what can we do? Have to,
I mean, I don't know why he wasn't given that to begin with.
It was being handled by the city administrator, and
Yeah.
it only was natural. It was a natural thing. He
Yeah.
had the tools.
and I think that there's a lot of validity to that. So for full disclosure, I did seek to enter an RBA a while back, and I was told that we would get a meeting scheduled, and then within 24 hours, that last meeting was on the calendar. So I think that there is some validity to that reliance on a single choke point. It's probably the biggest contributor. As a board, can I get concurrence that to direct the city clerk to provide anything necessary that she believes is reasonably necessary for the chairman to schedule and communicate out any future meetings to other board members, anything that you need to take control of getting this done? That reasonable? Have concurrence from the board on that?
Yes.
Aye.
Like, can I just jump in real quick? I did send out that invite on Tuesday. It
Right.
went out. I've heard back from, I think, maybe 5 individuals. So I don't have a quorum yet. My plan was to send it out again tomorrow morning to those individuals to see if we can't get enough to schedule, get a quorum set up.
The point of my motion is primarily to make sure that the chairman has what he needs, to take the bull by the horns if he needs to, and run that down and get the people. So if he needs contact information for the people on the committee and needs to give them personal calls and things like that, I want to make sure he's enabled to do that.
Mike, I would prefer, which I think is what Kim is saying, that you send that out tomorrow morning. Give me the information to follow up so that they're getting through the natural course that they've been getting it through in the past. And I can follow up with each of them if she doesn't hear from them within the next 4 or 5 days.
Sounds like a good plan. And at a request, what date do we want the final report by? I think that the answer was October 2nd.
October 2nd. Okay, because I could make the recommendation just for the sake of having a bit resolution ready to actually first. Is that if it's not done by the P&Z meeting in October, because that's where ultimately is going to go.
It would be the 9th.
That would be the 9th. So
By the
it'd be
9th
another
for
week.
P and Z. What's the consensus at tying this to the first P and Z meeting in October? Yeah,
That's
one
fine
option.
with me.
As long as it gets done.
That is fine with me too.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And we do not have much more time in the work session. I apologize. We will likely go over by a little bit, but we'll try to keep that to a minimum. Maintenance of yards, sidewalks on city right of way or easements. I believe this was Alderman Johnson.
Yes. What I have proposed here is something we don't have in our ordinance that I believe we ought to have in our city. This came to light for me when the Prairie and trying to get them to mow the grass going up to the edge of the roadway. This is an example of what a neighboring city has for us. Doesn't have for us, has in their indentures. And it's something I'd like to throw out, see what everybody thinks about. Add or delete things that are in there. I just think it'd be simpler than when I sit in a meeting and ask the developer, will you go ahead and maintain that property going to the roadway, which is not enforceable by just asking them. This way we'd have something that we could enforce. So just throwing that out there for everyone to look at.
So question for the city attorney. can we compel someone to maintain right of way adjacent to their house?
It's been years since I've looked at this, but my recommendation is yes.
Okay.
But my recollection is yes, but I'll have to.
So if legally enforceable under a statute of this kind, what are thoughts from the board?
I'd
Well-
like to know if it applies to the people that live along Highway N from Bryan down to where the city ends.
Or the people that live along Stump Road. There's a lot of, I think,
Yeah, that-
opportunities where it might not be a good fit.
They mow part of it, that appeals to them, and then they let the rest of theirs go. And then the rest of us along Highway N have to walk on the street if we need to go anywhere. So it would be much more convenient if people along there would also be able to mow so that we can walk, or kids can walk in the grass rather than walking along the highway.
That brings up a question for me. Looking at Highway N from going in front of Lewis and Clark from Bryan down to K, there's a lot of that area that's really deep ditch and things like that. Do we feel that the property owners there should have to get out next to Highway N and mow down there past the tree line? Because I know we've had a lot of problems with MoDOT.
They used to.
Yeah.
Why do they not now? Long Meadow or that
Longview.
Longview and Dick Herber Farms and all of them used to, that was always mowed and taken care of in front of there. And now all of a sudden, it's only done where they want to use that part of the land. And there are people that walk. I saw 3 kids the other day riding a bike on N, and they'd have to stop and put their bike over in the grass and get back on and try to go a little further. They were going up to the school. So it is an issue.
Yeah,
Can I-
this is exactly why I brought this up. It's more than just, the prairie. There's many places that I think this would be something that would benefit all the residents of the city. Besides that, making our city look nice for the people that just drive through it.
It puts the owners sometimes on residents, like the residents on Stump Road that have the sidewalks. One of them's a 70-something-year-old widow. She's expected to go out there and take snow off the sidewalk on a sidewalk she never even wanted. And then in Darting Acres along Feisey, the city cuts that grass there. So if it's more applicable to commercial versus residential, I think that there's obviously some situations where that's not going to be a good fit.
I would recommend, for sake of time, because there's some questions here, legally, in spirit, what does the board think of this? Is this something that you'd like to see come up for consideration on a regular meeting?
Yes.
I'm getting some head nods. Then as a board, can we ask the attorney to put something together for us and provide us a legal, our legal bounds on what we can, should, and should not do in this situation? That's the
Sounds
board.
good to me.
Mark?
Yes, that's exactly what I'd like. I was bringing this to the board to look at, and then I would like the attorney to put together something for us to really consider that we can legally hold anyone to.
Awesome. Alderman Whitman, Alderman Wilson, any objection to having that on the next meeting?
No objection.
None here.
Thank you, gentlemen. If there's no more questions on that one, moving on quickly to the final item, well, second to last, municipal management software. This is one that I put in. We have had a number of discussions about the municipal management software that we use. And right now there's a question of whether or not we go with MyGov or GoGov, companies that don't seem to have much marketing behind their names. They just go with something gov. We had 2 different sessions reviewing those products today. Understanding that one of those has a 3-month implementation time, if we were to choose that, and we are coming up really close to 3 months from the end of the year when our current subscription ends. So I wanted to make sure that this was on the agenda. I would encourage us to put ordinances for each onto the next work session so that the board can make a decision based on the staff's recommendations, as well as allocate any funds that need to be allocated so that we can move quickly and not delay or have any kind of gap in service. So if anyone has any questions, any feedback, otherwise we will go ahead and move on.
I think that makes sense as a good strategy moving forward.
Can I just say something real quick?
Okay.
Of the 5 people that were in the meeting at City Hall, we were all 5 under the consensus that staying with MyGov is a better option than going with GoGov. But we have it all, we have the reasons outlined, and yeah, we do feel like we're under the gun though.
So I would say it'd be very, very good to have staff recommendation provided at our next meeting. Because there are certainly staff recommendations should be considered very heavily, as well as cost. And then we do have to weigh the benefit to the community and what kind of services we want to offer to the community. So I'll leave it there. It sounds like we have consensus on adding this to the next work agenda with both bills in parallel so we can make a decision and get moving. All right. Last item's review of the Board of Aldermen agenda. Does anyone have any questions or want to bring anything up about today's agenda? All right. Hearing none, moving on to staff communications, city attorney,
I have nothing.
city engineer.
I have my submitted report. Does anyone have any questions related that there's some things on here that probably need some discussion in the near future about the city park, the public works parking lot. I think you see that on there. The Town Square Avenue erosion needs some thought. And of course, the other things are all status updates.
Thank you, sir. Alderman.
I have a couple things. I know we're pressed for time.
Yeah.
One thing that I wanted to talk about was I heard that part of the Stump Road issue where they had to pull up the existing concrete and re-pour was that there was a plastic soil issue. And I understand if that's an issue because in our subdivision, Dardine Acres, we even ran into that with my home and the foundation. Plastic soil had to be dug deeper, had to put in rock. And I'm just wondering, because I'm hearing that it's very expensive to do that. And that added cost, who is paying for the added cost of plastic soil? If there is indeed having to be additional rock and additional labor involved. I heard it's in the 6 figures. But again, you know.
You have that answer, but
So I can try to help.
Oh, God love you. Okay.
So, so I observed the loaded rock trucks that were moving in the area up near the apartment intersection and about 200 feet to the north on that eastern lane. There was no concrete poured at that time. It was prep work prior to the concrete. So, and I believe it was $11,000 for the latest bad soil. Doesn't mean we won't continue to encounter soil. So I did review, HR Green did soil testing. Obviously you can't test every inch. They did 5 to 6 soil tests. However, you know, so it's no one's fault. It's not the contractor's fault. I witnessed the movement of the soil. It was my recommendation, and there's no one, the concrete contractor does not want to lay fresh, new, expensive concrete.
just real quick, Tom, for the sake of brevity, because we are over time.
Okay.
I think the question at hand was about who would be paying for the increased
Well,
cost.
the answer is the city is responsible for paying contractor for unforeseen conditions. Contractor would have not known that.
Do we have a contingency within the budget that would be cost sharing, or is this completely out of the
Well,
city's pocket?
we would have, but you know, we're all the way up against that with the federal share. So anything at this point is city's 100%
And
share.
she mentioned the six-figure number. Do you know how much that estimate is?
I stated that it was approximately
$11,000.
$11,000.
Okay, so we're not hitting the 100,000 mark then.
No. There was some previous soil that was approved change order. And I believe that was about 15,000. So
Okay,
we're not approaching six figures yet.
okay,
The project is hopeful that during the last phase, phase 4, there's not really any grade changes on that. The elevations aren't changing much at all, other than removing the old pavement and replacing it almost in the same elevation.
we don't think there's any soil conditions on the other side that they haven't worked on yet?
That's what I was getting to.
Okay,
Phase 3 and 4. So phase 3 is very small. It's by the culvert. Phase 4 is to the north and up towards Feisey Road. And they encountered bad soil because of the large amount of cut and fill required on phase 1 and 2. So it's hoped
yeah,
that phase 4 will not encounter
Okay.
bad soil. But if we do encounter, I'd be happy to call you so you can witness the moving soil. I
Yeah.
actually can show you after the meeting
all right.
video of the
Absolutely.
loaded
Appreciate
truck.
that. And the other thing, I know we're pressed for time. I just wanted to mention the Inverness parking issue. I know that was worked on. Cheryl had to move the gates. There was workers parking in Inverness. I think the parking situation and the right-of-way situation is still a major concern, especially for the residents, in Pinnacle Point, Inverness, worried about the throughway. I know that that's something we've talked about before, but I don't know how we go forward with that and try to get some sort of resolution. And I know we're over time, but I did want to mention it.
Yeah, and I did see the email come through from Ms. Bratton. Appreciate the feedback. The mayor did say that he reached out to the project manager of that project. I'm hopeful by the time we have a chat that it is improved some, but we'll find that out. Anything else? All right. So I guess all that is left is to adjourn. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second,
All in favor?
aye.
All
Aye.
opposed? Ayes have it. We are adjourned. We'll take a 2-minute, 5-minute recess and be right back.
Hey, Keith, will you stop recording? I just wanna
Yeah,
make-
I'll do that right now. Thanks for the reminder.